Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forum. We do this every Sunday from 8 until 10 p.m. Love for you to join us live. I want to talk to you about life in America for children. Officer Darrell Robinson of the Green Bay Police Department responded to a call from a local school which advised the department that a young boy had been stranded at school pickup. Adding to insult, it was the little boy's 8th birthday. A post on the police department's Facebook page revealed that the boy's parent was in jail. Robinson spoke with a local TV station. He said it seemed like the child was in good spirits. He was playing around, he was excited, it was his birthday. So I brought him to McDonald's, got him a sandwich. He loved playing with the toy and his Happy Meal. During the news conference, Robinson revealed that the kindness of a police officer had inspired him as a young child. Local TV station reported that the boy's grandparents, who were contacted, had given permission for Robinson to take the child to McDonald's. After the boy's treat, Robinson left the child in the care of family members. But Robinson added that he has plans to keep in touch with the young boy. If the boy wants to come on a tour in the police station or see more stuff that we have to offer there, like SWAT vehicle or other emergency vehicles that we have, play with the lights and the sirens, I'd be happy to do that with him. In another story about children, parent Mandy Callahan posted on Facebook that her 12-year-old daughter came to her in tears earlier this month after she was too embarrassed to complete her sex education assignment. Callahan said she understood why as soon as she read the worksheet. One of the homework questions was to name the 4 types of sex. Could you do that? Let me give you a hint. Only one actually represents intercourse. The others are aberrant forms of sexual gratification that have become normalized in the last 20 years. The teacher said it was board approved. The school counselor said it was board approved. The school nurse said it was board approved. The principal said he approved it and there was nothing wrong with it. According to Callahan, the school district claimed they sent home a pamphlet not requiring a parental signature, just sending some information, but this parent never saw that. We didn't have an opportunity, she said, to get our daughter out of that class before it started. Later it was said that students could opt out, but that information depended on who you talked to. Callahan and her husband contacted the superintendent, who she said didn't call her back until the following week, and then only once the local news station picked up the story. The superintendent said the class had been pulled for now and is being investigated, but other than that, he really didn't know what we wanted from him. Even more, they said, we were told that while the program was discontinued this school year, it must continue to be taught in the coming years as per state requirements. We were also told that separating genders will no longer take place due to transgender laws. Callahan told TheBlaze.com that her 12-year-old received several notes from her classmates thanking her for speaking up and getting that class stopped. The school district did not return a request for comment. In a related story about a 4th grader, a Pittsburgh teacher was hospitalized after a 4th grade girl's mother allegedly hit her in the head with a brick, then dragged her from her car and beat her. This according to investigators. Why? Well, it seems the teacher attempted to take the child's cell phone away from her. The 4th grader, keep in mind this is a 8, 9, or 10-year-old child, then bit the teacher on the arm. Another teacher came along and was trying to get the phone away from the child. The student ran away from both of these teachers, bumping into a third, and that teacher took the cell phone to the office, which was school policy. With that, the student began cursing at them all and bit this one woman on the arm. At the conclusion of all this, the mother was called in, and this 29-year-old mother and her daughter met with the teacher who was bitten. The girl claimed the teacher choked her. Didn't happen. With that, the mother got angry and told the teacher that she, the mother, was going to get it. Or the teacher told the teacher that the teacher was going to get it later. Well, on her way home and sitting in traffic, the teacher, she saw a black male and a female exit a vehicle. The teacher was talking to her mother on her cell phone, and her driver's side door window was down. The woman approached the teacher's car and allegedly threw a brick through the open window, hitting the teacher in the head. The mother then opened the door, dragged the woman into the road, began punching and kicking her. Then the man and the woman ran off. The teacher told police, who arrived on the scene, that the female suspect was this fourth grade girl's mother. The teacher was taken to a hospital for facial injuries, adding that she had lost a tooth and she may have a concussion. Her husband said her lip was bloody, her face was numb, and she had lumps all along the side of her face, and she was in a lot of pain. And the mother? Well, she admitted punching the teacher in her face, but not throwing a brick at her. She was found guilty of 3 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count each of terroristic threats, stalking, and reckless endangerment. And since she was unable to post her $50,000 bail, she went to jail. This is the moral standard of many people today in America. It is the product of 20 or 30 years of failure. Failure in the home, failure in the church, failure in the schools, failure in the government. What's happening? The society has been taken over by secularists, atheists, and spiritual anarchists. Somewhere in the last 75 years, America crossed over from a nation rooted in biblical principle to a nation fascinated with the freedoms promised by secularists. Secularists who are rooted in atheistic indoctrination. Atheism propagated by college professors, entertainers, academics. Yet how can any informed, concerned person or corporate executive who cares about children buy into the idea of respect for homosexual behavior or for gender confusion? It is irrational. And the harm being done to these children and to the society by this movement is significant. It is deep, it is wide, it is full. And the damages will in many cases last forever. And yet our children are being taught in school after school to respect sin. Why? Because the programs and promotion of the gay, lesbian, and straight education network and its co-laborers in depravity are pushing this idea that we need to respect what is clearly sinful, counterproductive, physically destructive, morally destructive in every way. Now, this group has a website, and their website says that they are championing the LGBTQ issues in K through 12 education, and they've been doing this since 1990. They said our mission is to create safe and affirming schools for all, regardless of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. And the idea here is that these children, these young people, and adults as well, teachers and others, have been persecuted for their differences. But now that worm has turned, And the rest of us, the majority, are being persecuted by the minority because we won't accept them. Now, it's never actually been true that the society was out to destroy these people. Those who reject the aberrant forms of behavior are normal. They see clearly, and they know what's right, and they know what's wrong, and they know this is dangerous and destructive, and they're willing to point it out. That makes them dangerous. And so now that group is being silenced, intimidated, embarrassed, persecuted. For instance, did any of the kids in your family recently participate in Ally Week at school? September 25 through 29 of this past year, last month. The website talks about Ally Week as a student-powered program where LGBTQ K through 12 students and LGBTQ educators lead the conversation on what they need from their allies in school. And who are these allies? Well, they are unsuspecting, gullible, intimidated, ignorant teachers, administrators, and students. Your children. Many Christian students are being railroaded into going along with the manipulative message of a sexually immoral week. Ally Week is a propaganda effort directed toward vulnerable school children. Have you ever heard of no bullying rules? Laws in schools and society? Where did they come from? They came from this organization. This radical group has been pushing schools for about 10 years to weave a No Child Left uncorrupted observance into anti-bullying programs co-opted by implied endorsement of the perverse LGBTQ identities. These allies are non-homosexual students who condone homosexual, bisexual behavior. And this occurs among students and teachers alike. If you resist, if you condemn, you're a bully. If you just say, I don't agree with that, you're a bully. You will be punished. You will be punished as though you punched somebody in the mouth. If not by the school administration, certainly by your classmates. Kids who memorize Bible passages on Sunday morning are told on Monday at school to cheer on their peers who dive intentionally into the sins that they're being taught they shouldn't be participating in. You wonder why sometimes church isn't as effective when it comes to children as it used to be. Did you know that approval of sin is itself a sin? The Bible says, Romans chapter 1, and even as they did not like to retain God in their knowledge, God gave them over to a reprobate mind, to do those things which are not convenient, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication, wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whisperers, backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do it. Did you see it? When a person or a society refuses to retain God in their knowledge, respect for His principles, honor for His purposes, reflection on His existence, God will give that person or that society over to what He calls a reprobate mind. A reprobate thought process, which is a morally worthless orientation of mind, heart, expression. We hear it every day. People say to us, well, Who's to say what's right or wrong? God. And it used to be that every decent human being on the planet could tell you what was right and what was wrong. And now we're not allowed. For generations, public school classes began with a reading from the Bible, the Old Testament, so as not to offend the Jewish students. That ended before the 1960s. Do you remember what happened in the 1960s and the 1970s? We saw a series of U.S. Supreme Court decisions that took us away from our roots. Everything from Bible reading and prayer in school, to abortion, to no-fault divorce, to the removal of the Ten Commandments from public buildings, to the removal of the phrase, "In God we trust," from our currency. And do you remember the violence of the 1960s and 1970s being perpetrated, propagated, largely by college-age students? Do you remember the drugs, the sex, the AIDS epidemic that came to us in the 1980s? Do you think there's a correlation in any of this? The secularists will say no. And they say that because they want your children to be infected with this new national philosophy. They will tolerate disease, damage, even death to maintain their course. Back in the late 1800s, there was a lady by the name, we called her Typhoid Mary. She was infecting people with typhus. They isolated her. They found her, they isolated her from the population. And in the 1980s, when they discovered the AIDS virus, and they were able to track it down to a single Canadian who had come from Africa to this country and so forth, what did they do with him? Nothing. With AIDS, we took the police, the doctors, the jailers, anybody that had to do, nurses, doctors, anybody that had to do with touching people, they had to be protected. They had to wear the rubber gloves. The people who had the infection that was incurable were free to continue living their life and infecting other people to their heart's content. And many of them said publicly that they were having sex, homosexual or otherwise, with people for the purpose of infecting them, so that AIDS sufferers would have equal rights. That's pure evil. But it's evil on a national scale. Our government was involved in that. It wasn't reported as evil. We simply recorded a new category of human existence. We call them the homosexual. Well, where did homosexuality lead? To transgenderism, another artificial construct. And there's more and more medical and psychiatrical stuff being written every day to tell us that this whole transgender thing is a fake. But it's too late. It's embedded in our DNA now. When children mistakenly identify as gay or transgendered, they are giving voice to this chaos and artificiality. Well, these kids desperately need to have rebels in their midst, those brave enough to defy the prevailing narrative. Without this, these children, these troubled children, would probably have to accept that they had a problem. Now they can look at the fact that they probably were born this way. It helps them sleep at night, gives them worth, and that's important. But it's another of Satan's lies. And as we know, the enemy loves to destroy children. We are now being told that children who consistently and persistently insist that they are not the gender associated with their biological sex are innately transgender. Normal people and psychiatrists have for generations held that anyone who consistently and persistently insists on anything contrary to physical reality is considered either confused or delusional. Yet the new transition affirming protocol advises parents to treat their children as the gender they desire. 5-year-olds, 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds telling their parents who they are, and to place them on puberty blockers at age 11 or 12 if they are gender dysphoric. If by age 16 the children still insist that they are trapped in the wrong body, place them on cross-sex hormones, and biological girls may obtain a double mastectomy. All this is becoming obvious to the medical world that something's wrong. Children are not equipped to make these decisions at these ages. Parents are being led around by the children and by many in the medical profession. In California, they even let their 4- and 5-year-olds sit at the feet of a drag queen dressed like a demon to listen to books being read to them in a public library, all of which to celebrate LGBTQ History Month. Here are 8 hard facts one medical doctor offers anyone who's maybe interested. Number 1, twin studies prove no one is born, quote, trapped in the body of the wrong gender, end of quote. Secondly, gender identity is malleable, especially in young people. We used to all know that. Thirdly, puberty blockers for gender dysphoria have not been proven safe. Fourthly, there are no cases in the scientific literature of gender dysphoric children discontinuing the blockers. You put them on there, they're going to stay there. And it's not safe. Number 5, cross-sex hormones are associated with dangerous health risks. 6, neuroscience shows that adolescents lack the adult capacity needed for risk assessment. Neuroscience? Every mother knew that in 1952. Number 7, there's no proof that affirmation prevents suicide in children. Number 8, transition affirming protocol has not solved the problem of transgender suicides. I strongly recommend that you read this woman's complete findings and share them with anybody and everybody you know. This crazy cultural tide needs to be reversed with real science, real common sense, real morality. Stop the child abuse now. If you want this list, go online. WN as in Nancy, D as in dog, WND, worldnetdaily.com. October 8, 2017. Articles entitled Reasons Transgenderism is Politics, Not Science. The point that's being made here is that when you cut loose from your moorings, you will drift with the current unless you have the power to drive your craft and a rudder with which to steer it. That power is truth, God's truth. That rudder is the Bible. Cultural and official America has abandoned both.